with you.
Welcome back to Hannity. The president's recent refusal to take any blame for underestimating the ISIS threat is just one example of him leading from behind. And when it comes to being a leader, well, a commander-in-chief could learn a thing or two from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Watch this.
Are you saying that this is not really a war?
Well, what I'm saying is that we are assisting Iraq in a very real battle.
ISIS must be defeated. But to defeat ISIS and leave Iran as a threshold nuclear power is to win the battle and lose the war.
Rather than play whack-a-mole and send U.S. troops wherever this occurs, we have to build strong partnerships.
When militant Islam succeeds anywhere, it's emboldened everywhere. When it suffers a blow in one place, it's set back in every place.
If we make the mistake of simply sending U.S. troops back in, we can maintain peace for a while.
Once Iran produces atomic bombs, all the charms and all the smiles will suddenly disappear. And it's then that the Ayatollahs will show their true face and unleash their aggressive fanaticism on the entire world.
Bibi, Winston Churchill, Obama, Neville Chamberlain. Joining me now, Arizona Senator John McCain, as well as former Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman, who is now an advisory board member for the Counter-Extremism Project. Thank you both. By the way, now that I have you both here, truth be told, in 2008, Senator McCain, did you consider this man as a potential VP choice?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I would listen. I'm grateful for Sarah Palin, but I'm also grateful for Joe Lieberman and the wonderful work he has done for this country. And I consider him one of the finest men I've ever known.
Listen, I tried to say once I was his friend. I nearly got him defeated in Connecticut for saying that, so I don't know if I'll go there.
And unlike you, Sean, in Connecticut, when John says he's my friend, and you me.
Yeah, exactly.
Incidentally, this is our first time on television together.
Is that true?
John and me. We talk to each other all the time. First time on television together since I left the Senate. So this is, I don't know if it's quite like Simon and Garfunkel getting together again.
Maybe it is. Let me ask you, Senator Lieberman, no shock and awe, no boots on the ground. We're not at war with ISIS. The Islamic State is not Islamic. He was warned for a year about ISIS, misses his briefings for, 60-some-odd% of the time. What do you make of this?
Well, the statements you're just citing, Sean, to me are really disappointing because they come after a really pretty good, strong speech by President Obama at the United Nations, in which he took some positions that he had not taken for the previous years, recognizing the broader threat of militant Islam, violent Islam, coming from the Muslim community, finally doing what John and I had been asking him to do for 3 years, which is to give weapons to the Syrian opposition to fight the butcher Assad in Damascus, and talking about cutting off funding for the terrorist groups and developing social media to try to convince young Muslims not to join them, which is what this counter-extremism project that I'm involved with has got to do now. So when he goes on the air and does a 60 Minutes interview and some of the others, and says some of the things you cite, it undercuts that. And we are at war. He himself said this is going to last beyond
Why can't he say it?
I don't know. Maybe he's concerned legalistically that if he says we're in a war, then the Congress has to authorize whatever he does. But you got to tell it as it is, and as it is, it's
Senator
a war.
McCain, he misses 60% of his intelligence briefings, plays more golf than he sits in these meetings. He was warned for over a year about ISIS, warned about the consequences of leaving Iraq. He did nothing as city after city fell. We lost 4,000 Americans, Senator McCain. Those families have to be asking why tonight.
And Joe Lieberman and I were in Fallujah and Ramadi, where hundreds of Americans were killed and wounded. The black flags of ISIS fly over those cities today. It's hard to talk to the parents of those families and those brave veterans that literally put everything on the line. Let me just say, it's a bigger problem here with this president. This the dog ate my homework routine is getting a little tiresome. It started for 6 years with BIOB, blame it on Bush, and now the JV has turned into turned into Super Bowl contestants. He does not fails to realize that it is his policies and decisions that led us where we are. When Ryan Crocker yesterday, the most respected diplomat that I know of, said, yes, we could have left a stabilizing force behind. These brave Americans had stabilized the situation in Iraq. ISIS was nothing when the President of the United States announced that we were going to withdraw everybody from Iraq. And by the way, if he does what he says he's going to in Afghanistan, you'll see the same movie. And that is just disgraceful.
Let me ask you both this question, because I think both of you recognize, Senator Lieberman, I know you recognize that ISIS is Islamic. Right. I know you understand that we're at war with ISIS right now. I know you understand that a president ought to be reading his intelligence briefings every day. I know that you understand what happened in Oklahoma and what happened at Fort Hood was not workplace violence, but this was terror.
Terrorism, right.
I ask you, I want you, because you have far more credibility with the White House than I do, to advise this president. Give him your best counsel.
Well, I don't know why these games, really. I spent a lot of time studying what happened at Fort Hood with Major Hassan. I mean, the man stood up and shouted Allahu Akbar, and then he killed 13 Americans and wounded a bunch of others. Do you know of any time in recent memory when there's been a murder in the United States and the murderer has cut off the head of the victim?
No.
This has to be...
3 days after the leader of ISIS called for lone wolves to do it.
And it's not just coincidental, as we know. This is an individual who obviously had turned toward violent Islam by his own social media.
So what's the answer?
The answer is we have to keep shouting out.
Go to war. If we're going to go to war, should we win it?
Yeah, that's the only way to go to war. And that's why I say I'm so disappointed, because the president, to me, in the address to the nation, in the speech at the UN, seemed to be turning in the right direction. Now it seems to be, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or maybe 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Senator McCain, I supported the war in Iraq, and I believe we won that war. But I believe we didn't keep the intelligence and the training troops on the ground for the Iraqi forces. I cannot, in good conscience, ever support a war if we don't plan to win it and maintain the victory. What's your advice to the president?
My advice is, and I agree with Ralph Peters, these are minimal strikes, minimal action. We are asking 5,000 young Syrians to go back into the fight and yet not protect them against Bashar Assad's barrel bombs. We warned ISIS days ahead of time, so the buildings were empty. And I promise you, we will have to have boots on the ground. That does not mean units, but it means forward air controllers, special forces, and others, even in Syria, if we are going to prevail over ISIS. And the way that these airstrikes are being conducted reminds me of a war a long time ago and far away, my friend, called the Vietnam War, when gradual escalation, which caused us to lose it.
All right, guys, good to see you both. And coming up on this busy news night, the head of the Secret Service took a lot of heat from lawmakers today on Capitol Hill after news broke yesterday that the White House intruder made it much further into the people's house than the agency originally revealed. That and much more. And Ebola is here in America. We have a report with our medical team straight ahead.